Why don't we start off with the quarterbacks? Again, let me know if you can't see this okay. I'm going to make some overall changes eventually too, but I'm going to go position by position first. And then we'll kind of dive back into the overall, and I'll update it throughout the night. It'll be published later on today on the website, roastjournal.com, and in our app as well. So the first risers on my big board today are these rookie quarterbacks. And I've already made some of these adjustments. As you can see, I already bumped up Fields and Lance. I only have Fields just a spot higher because I do think there's a better chance he starts. But either way, I absolutely love these guys. And I think both of them, one of them for sure, if not both, is going to go down as a league winner in 2021. Now, they might not start the year already. Andy Dalton's looking decent in camp. They're saying he's going to be the week 1 starter no matter what. Jimmy Garoppolo as well, looking solid. They're saying there's no plans to alternate right now. But it's only a matter of time, whether it's bye weeks, whether Andy Dalton becomes Andy Dalton again, turns into the pumpkin, no pun intended with the hair. That could happen very quickly. And all the reports are Trey Lance, the ball is just floating out of his arm as he flicks the wrist, like Mahomesian, the way it's coming out. Justin Fields has been so impressive. He is dazzling with his arm, is the word they're using. Just show starstruck a lot of the players around him. Not only his arm, but for both of these guys, their athleticism, especially Justin Fields. Everybody knows Trey Lance is a runner. 1,100 yards, 8 TDs in the college games last season out there. He's like a bull too. I mean, he's a beast. But Justin Fields doesn't get the Konami credit I think he deserves. In fact, only Michael Vick has ran a faster 40 time than Justin Fields. And they're saying in practice, he has been showing off the legs more and more often. The designed runs, Matt Nagy says, nobody can catch him. The broken plays, like this is a big weapon, big edge that he gives us, which is huge. So Konami code upside. And I also want to emphasize with Trey Lance too, faces Atlanta and Houston and Tennessee over his last 3 weeks. I don't know the exact order. I forget them, but I just know it's easy. And the Bengals the week before that. So late season stretch runs, these guys are going to be monsters. Go get them in your rounds 12, 13. In fact, you see how high I have them up here above potentially even Burrow, who we're going to talk about why he fell in a second. Even though I know Burrow's going to get you more points over the course of the season because he's going to play all the games, assuming he stays healthy. Just the edge that Fields and Lance are going to bring you when they take over is going to be mammoth. So I've bumped them up to 13 and 14 into this tier of guys that I consider high-end QB1s because I really do think they could be cheat codes. So keep up watching those guys, especially if one of them takes over as a starter. They can't be your number one until then. You still have to get somebody ahead of them. But, man, they're going to be stretch one league winners based on what they're seeing in camp. Now, Burrow did fall, as you can see here, below them. That might be too aggressive, but I do want to see them get it together. The reports in camp so far are that, quote, it's not good. It's just not good right now, The Athletic wrote. He hasn't thrown anything downfield further than 10 yards. He hasn't been looking comfortable putting his foot in the ground, certainly not running, but even as a thrower just looks tentative out there. And he came out and said in the press conference, yeah, it's a mental thing right now. I am struggling. Physically I'm there. I've rehabbed it all. And this is often what happens with these injuries. I tore my ACL myself, not that I'm on the NFL field, but it is, when do you trust it again? When you finally can get back out there and take a hit. And he's slowly working out that rust. So that's a natural process of this. I'm not going to overreact and be like, Burrow, do not draft him. In fact, I've seen his ADP falls like 130 these days. That's absurd. I mean, this guy is still going to be a quality QB1 more often than not. He was on pace to lead the league in pass attempts last year before getting hurt. But still, you'd love to see reports that are saying he's just slinging it all over the yard, no hesitancy, all that goodness, and it's just not happening. And they're saying, as we'll talk about a little bit later, Jamar Chase isn't looking like that true alpha number one that so many of us had expected coming in. So ultimately, I like Burrow. I like his passing volume. I still worry about the line because I think he's going to be under duress. And how does that mentally impact a guy that's just saying right now, I'm not mentally stable? It's a little worrisome. Not overreacting. This is more so, as you see here, a love for Fields and Lance and their league winning potential. But I just wanted to make note that Burrow is falling a little bit in my rankings. And the last guy to note here at quarterback's going to be a quicker position. But Taysom Hill is starting. So as you can see, I've bumped him up above Daniel Jones. And now that's not official. Taysom Hill is already. He's starting out with the ones in camp. Let's start there. Jameis Winston, for what it's worth, has looked impressive too. He's giving it his all. It's an open competition. I am far more interested at this point in Taysom as a fantasy quarterback because of Mike Thomas's injury, because of his surgery, because who knows when he's going to be back. We'll talk about that a little bit later too. I would much rather see Taysom win this role in terms of just sheer quarterback value. Now, of course, for Alvin Kamara, for the receivers, we're going to break down in a little bit who's number one when we get to receivers. I'd obviously rather see the gunslinging Jameis, who led the league in passing yards his last full season and passing touchdowns. I mean, the guy still ropes it. But is he that interesting, Jameis himself, as a fantasy quarterback? I don't know with that weaponry that he will be. So ultimately, if Taysom's starting and he started out with the ones over Jameis, he was a top 10 quarterback those 3 weeks that he started. In fact, over the collection of those games, he was the QB3. The Konami code is real, folks. And Taysom Hill, you can get in your last rounds right now as a dart throw in best ball. And if you have early seasonal drafts, might be worth just taking and stashing and seeing what happens there, given he's running with the ones. Now, a couple injuries that we just wanted to note, and you can see Carson Wentz down there did fall. And again, please let me know if you can't see that very clearly. I'm happy to shrink myself and raise that up. But Wentz did have a foot injury. Now, the craziest timetable of all time, 5 to 12 weeks is apparently the timetable. And early reports suggest the team is optimistic that it's going to be on the earlier side, that he might only miss a week or two early on in the season. Still, that 5 to 12 range is not comforting. You imagine, does the team tank if they lose the first couple games and look horrible? I don't know. Does the foot, does he trust the foot later after having a surgery on it right before camp? Who knows? I don't like it. It's not great for the weapons there. We'll talk about Jonathan Taylor in a little bit when we get to the running backs. Has to get a little bit of a downgrade given this offense is going to take down. To me, Wentz has no purpose on a fantasy roster right now. Leave him on the waivers. Obviously, when he comes back, he has that narrative with Reich. They've played together before. He was on pace for the MVP their last time together. There is a narrative Wentz could have a good season. I see no reason to draft him at this point. If you're taking flyers, just go for like Cam Newton or Mac Jones at that range and see which one starts the season, right? And then Dak as well. His shoulder injury is quote unquote minor. It's more of a baseball thing, is the reports, which I don't know how that sounds. After the MRI, they're optimistic he's going to be able to begin throwing soon. So you don't have to go too crazy with Dak Prescott. As you can see, I still have him as my 5th quarterback, but he was in this tier before. He was alongside these guys. He was on pace to throw for over 5,000 yards last year. I think he was on pace for a 17-game season to be nearly 6,000 yards, right? That offense was insane. But if he's not fully healthy, fully there, he's not really getting acclimated in camp. He doesn't need that. He's going to be fine. I just need to know he's healthy before I can bump him back into this tier. If he's going to have a slow start, that's a good separator, a good tiebreaker between Dak and these guys. And if you took Herbert over him because you're nervous, I wouldn't hate it. Wouldn't blame you at all there. So those are my quarterbacks, risers and fallers, as you can see. Not a ton of action there, but some big names to discuss. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.